Good morning. Welcome to the February 28th meeting of the Montgomery County House Delegation. Today on our agenda, we'll be hearing from the Montgomery County Board of Education, as well as from our MCPS superintendent. And then we also have a second guest presentation from the universities at Shady Grove to be followed by voting on two local bills. So we will start by kicking it over to the Montgomery County Board of Education President, Julie Yang, and to MCPS Superintendent, Thomas Taylor. And we'll turn it over to you for your presentation.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here with you and appreciate the chance to talk a bit this morning. Superintendent and I had four topics we want to briefly touch upon, and then we will open up for any questions you might have. So thank you for having us. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, here we go. Share. All right, so there are four topics we want to briefly touch upon: blueprint, chronic absenteeism, the status of the anti-bias training, and immigration. I'm going to talk about the first two, and then Dr. Taylor will cover the later two, and then we'll answer your questions together. Before I start with talking about this topic, I want to thank you for your steadfast support for our school system and for your work on behalf of all of us at Annapolis. I know it's not an easy job, so I want to really express my appreciation. So for the blueprint, which there are some things that are going well for us. The pre-K seats are very much appreciated. We added last school year 260 seats. Also this year, we have a grant funding for new Judy Center, which will be at the Weller Road. So it will be at the Silver Spring Wheaton portion of the county. Now, we have the highest number of the National Board Certified Teachers in Maryland. For this school year is 745 teachers, and it really is a boost to their morale, and it is a great reward for their professionalism. We already met, like we are the overachiever, like always. We already met the blueprint requirement for teacher salary in the last school year. So that is a positive tool for us to use to recruit and retain the best educators in our county. And given the cost of living, we see this as very necessary too. In terms of the pillar on college and career development, we have 268 high school students graduated with a dual degree. And also, there are some very impressive numbers. We have about over 4,000 students, 4,500 students doing dual enrollment. And we have 7,000, almost 9,000 students doing IB courses. And we have about 48,000 course enrollments in the AP courses. I should say enrollments, right? 8,000 enrollments in IB courses, about 48,000 enrollment in AP courses. And then last year, we also have 20,000 course enrollment in CTE classes. So these are positive signs we see. We have currently 53 community schools and a lot of wraparound services. Okay, so those are the great things happening with Blueprint, but we also have some concerns. And some of it you are very well aware of is the actual cost of implementation is more than the allocated state fund to support. Also, this year, we are concerned about the teacher collaborative time, the freezing funds for that, the potential of freezing funds for that, because we have, as a system, has gone ahead, implemented collaborative time with our teachers. So this will be, we were hoping to have this funding to help out. There is also some concern this year, actually greatly concerned. We are greatly concerned about the proposed pension shift because this is a forever shift of the $21 million. The special education private placement share also is a great concern. Right now, we are looking at $2 million for the next physical cycle. And also, one more thing is we love our community schools. When we were doing our budget, we were not aware that there will be 22 community schools added to Montgomery County to us, which we love community schools, but that also means it's an $8 million local share of funding. So these are some of our challenges. Implemented blueprint on the ground. In the past, we have heard delegations' questions on chronic absenteeism. I have here a screen to show some of our more recent data. Now, I have to say that we are trending in the right direction. Pre-pandemic, in the 2019-2020 school year, our absenteeism, the whole system is about 19.5%. This year, we are back to almost 21%. So we are almost back to that level. During the pandemic, there was one year we were trending 27%. And for our high schools, it was 35% absenteeism. So the number was really alarming, and we were all very concerned. Now, in the past year and a half, we have put in some measures, and I think what worked the most is putting a student-centered focus. I was at Queen's Orchard High School this week, and the principal was sharing me how their teachers are the first one to make contact with families if they noticed any student that have been absent in their classes. And also, we also do have a well-being team that is us going over the data and addressing the student needs. That includes our social workers, counselors, and our people personnel workers. So we are seeing a good trend. High school down about 10% this year. And I also do think there's a good news. Our superintendent's going to touch upon immigration, but I have asked staff to pull data. We have not seen a drop in attendance in our areas that with high concentration, the whole system, and the area we have a large immigrant community. So I think that is a positive sign that our students and family still view school as a safe place for them to come to. I know that I already see hands. I will take the question after the superintendent's touch upon his two topics. Thomas, I'll give it to you.
Thank you, President Yang, and thank you for advancing the slide. And good morning, team. It is wonderful to see you. I have so enjoyed getting to know many of you, and I look forward to getting to know you all a little bit better as we go through this General Assembly session and in future General Assembly sessions. I'd like to reiterate all the things that President Yang added and love to illuminate a couple other things. In compliance with House Bill 1386, we have built out a pretty robust structure of employee anti-bias training courses and have even added student anti-bias training courses, which of course is not a provision of the bill, but things that we are doing. And I want to bring some of this to light. And it's not listed on the slide here, but our Honoring Humanity course our summer administrative training, our equity department train the trainer model. These are all full day courses. They require a ton of commitment and have actual follow-up activities beyond the activities of the actual day themselves. And the ripple effect of these training courses has been pretty substantial. We rolled out a couple of tweaks to our hate bias protocols this year, which has gone much, much smoother than we had last year. Doesn't mean that we don't have issues, doesn't mean that we don't have hiccups, but our response and our response time has greatly improved. Had a little bit of trouble collecting the data on our cultural awareness courses because there are so many. And the number of participants is in the thousands. And because this is developed and executed by our train the trainer model, these courses are often happening a little bit off the grid, and collecting some of the participant data is a little difficult because it is so many. But we are offering a very robust catalog of courses, even beyond our annual staff compliance. Our annual staff compliance training probably is the weakest component in this portfolio, and we're in the process right now of revising that and upgrading it so that it's a little bit more engaging, and it even has an assessment component at the end. President Yang, if you want to advance to the next slide. Something that we're particularly proud of is that we're a school system that lives out its values, and making sure that our schoolhouses are safe, welcoming, and inclusive is very important to us. We are proud to be the leaders in Maryland in providing resources to our immigrant families and to our community. You have a snapshot right here of a flyer that we have in each of our schoolhouses in the front office. Along with a cutout card that we've even got little cutout cards that are also in the front offices of our schools, where people can really understand and know their rights, a link to additional resources, and when you go to the Montgomery County Public Schools website, a search brings you directly to our immigration supports, and you can see some of the things that we have available. We've communicated directly with our families a few times. We're queuing up a follow-up message in the month of March, but we shared a pretty clear message about where we stand and where our values are, and the things that we believe with our community. We are regularly hosting Know Your Rights events at many of our schools, and they are well attended and supported by community agencies, and we're particularly proud of that. I do want to circle back to one item that didn't make the slide deck in President Yang's discussion about the blueprint. There is a required training component for board presidents and school superintendents and principals. That's a part of the blueprint expectations and in the law. I'm going to be completely candid with the delegation and tell you that this training is not useful. It is borderline a waste of time. It takes principals out of the schoolhouse. It takes school staff out of the schoolhouse. It takes us out of our day-to-day work for 3/4 of a day meeting. And it is not the highest and best use of state resources, nor is it the highest and best use of our resources. This might be a small thing that can be rethought in your mix of requirements for the blueprint and value add that the rest of the state could celebrate. We're not opposed to having meetings and conversations about this, not one bit. We would love to engage in this in a really meaningful way, but we would really like it to be meaningful, and we would like that time to be productive. So at this time, President Yang and I would love to take the delegation's questions and support you in any way that we can.
Thank you both so much for, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead, President Yang.
I was just going to say, I'm going to pass it back to you, Chair.
Oh, very good. Yes, thank you both so much for the presentation. And I see a couple of hands are already up. Colleagues, if there are others who have questions, please get your virtual hands raised so you can get into the queue. We'll start with Delegate Kaufman.
go first, but I think Delegate Wilkins actually had her hand up first. But if you want me to go, I'll go. My question is that okay with you, Delegate Wilkins?
Her hand is
Yes,
actually
please
not
go
up.
ahead.
Okay. Oh, it was up for it. Okay. So anyway, just my question is this, and that is, I love all those courses like understanding Black men and all those different things that you're doing. And let me preface this by saying, let them sue. I think the courses are great, but since we have an administration that seems to think that DEI is abhorrent? Are we putting ourselves at risk for potential litigation with the federal government by doing these courses? I think we should keep doing them and see what the courts decide, but are you at all concerned about that, Dr. Taylor?
We are not breaking the law. We are in full compliance with federal, state, and local law. We believe that diversity is a huge strength in our system, and I actually don't see any reason why we would stop doing what we are doing. And we have an obligation to our community citizens to create a safe and welcoming environment. And one of the ways that we can do that is through culturally responsive instruction and educating our educators on how to do that best.
Delegate,
I totally agree with you for sure. 110% we're aligned on that. I was just wondering if you'd heard rumblings, and I'm glad you haven't.
Going next to Delegate Wu.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Superintendent Taylor and President Young. And really appreciated the presentation, covered a lot of topics I really care about, absenteeism, about the immigrant students and other support. So when I look at the chronism, absenteeism, look especially for pre-K, it's pretty high. Last year, more than 50, around 50%, now 1/3. And what's the major reason? Because we put a lot of resources and emphasis to try to bring the surface to our students. And what's the main reason they're not coming back to school day by day? Is there
Great.
any new approach you try to develop to fix that?
I think every year, thank you for that question, Delegate Wu. Superintendent definitely can illuminate a little bit more. The board also is concerned about this, and we have asked the school system. And there are several reasons. One of it, I think these are pre-K kids, right? So first of all, going to school, number one, coming to school is a new idea, and families and students are all adjusting to this new idea of coming to school, making this a habit. Second of all, we do have limited locations at different parts of the county. So traveling to a site, sometimes they are not the most convenient for our students. And also in the past, we do, and we still do, have half-day programs. And half-day programs, it does not help working families because it needs someone to be able to pick up a student, and that do not align with how our workforce times typically set up with employers. So we see these as barriers for improving the pre-K attendance.
Yeah, I'll just add two quick things to President Yang's comments because she's spot on. Our pre-K expansion through Blueprint will be to full day programs. It is a critical step for us, and the outcomes speak for themselves. The full day programs are much more robust, and the families, if they get a late start to the day, they are more inclined to send their kids to the pre-K program when it's full day versus a half day or a partial day. The second big piece is it's not compulsory. There's nothing to compel, there's nothing to direct other than it being optional, and parents know that. And so when there's a sniffle, when there's the slightest chance that that there isn't cause to go, and there isn't an obligation. There is less involvement. Now, keep in mind, these are chronic absenteeism numbers, not absenteeism numbers. So our daily average attendance is 95%. And in pre-K, it's a little over 90%. But chronic absenteeism is measuring 18 or more days missed in a school year, or 10% missed in a school year. So that's a relatively low threshold. And typically in the spring, those numbers tend to dive up because you are in fact exceeding that threshold as you get closer and closer to the end of the year.
Thank you, and I'll thank Delegate Wu because I had the same question, so thank you for asking that. Next, Delegate Spiegel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, President Yang and Superintendent Taylor, for your leadership, for your candor, and in particular, for your leadership in implementing the blueprint as compared to pretty much every other county in the state. I had another question about absenteeism. It's a little different. In the wake of the ongoing chaotic federal immigration actions, I realize all of it is quite new still, and there is lag time in collecting absenteeism data. So I'm assuming that a lot of the data that you've shared with us and that you have doesn't necessarily reflect what impact that may be having over the last month or so. But even if anecdotally, I'm wondering if you could share what
I think your internet cut out a little bit, but Delegate.
that has been on absenteeism levels you heard.
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you for that question, Delegate. Although you cut out a little bit, I got the idea. I got
You got the gist? Okay.
Yeah, I got the gist. Now, I actually asked the staff to pull data just last week and pull data of several of the whole system and several of a high impact area like Gaithersburg High School, Watkins Mill High School, and several and Down County School, Wheaton, Kennedy High School. And that was my question. I want to see whether this have an impact on our attendance. I have not seen it. I have not seen it. It's always within 1 percentile differences. And there was one day, and Dr. Taylor and I there was one day that was the day without immigrants on February 3rd, a Monday. And that day we did see a big drop in attendance. So other than that, we haven't seen the impact. So I feel like whatever measures we have put in place and the letters we have sent to families to reassure them, to send to the community to reassure them has worked. People still view school as a good and safe place to come.
Yeah, I have two additions, and President Yang and I are very proud of this, that school is a place where the kids feel safe to come to. We do actually have real-time attendance data. So the very next day, we can measure the yesterday's progress. And there was actually another day where we had a significant attendance irregularity. The day after Halloween, it just absolutely crushed us at the elementary level. Just goes to show that the Trump administration is no comparison to sugar, and that sugar still rules the day, and that children and sugar, it's a complicated relationship.
Thank you. We'll go next to Delegate Wilkins.
Hi, everyone. Good morning and greetings to President Yang and Dr. Taylor. Wonderful to see you. I have a couple of quick things. I wanted to ask about President Yang. You mentioned the blueprint and particularly the community schools and the fact that Montgomery County has the opportunity to support 20 more of our highest poverty schools becoming community schools. But you mentioned some sort of burden on the
Mm.
county associated with that. I wanted to ask you to expand upon that, because since the state does provide the funds for a full-time staffer as
Yeah.
well as per pupil funding for wraparound services, this is the first time that I'm hearing about some kind of county burden. So if you could illuminate on that. And then I do have a follow-up question around how the per pupil funds are being utilized, but I'll ask you the first one first.
Right. Okay. We'll answer this question together. So we have 53 community school currently, and they are really providing tremendous service to our students. I was at Harmony Hill Elementary School this week to see their after-school programs. So these schools not only give out health, food, social services, they have field trips and after-school programs. So they are a wonderful resources and service to our families. Now, for any community school, we do have a local share according to Blueprint. So the 22 more community schools, my staff told me that's $8 million local funding that we need to put in support of community schools.
Yes, there's a local match required to access the additional funds for community schools. It is part of the funding expectations as been outlined by MSDE staff to our financial staff. In terms of how we utilize the funds, as everyone knows, there's a finite list of what you can spend community schools money on and what you can't. And primarily this is on resources and personnel, and we've been doing that pretty consistently in terms of what we provide at each school. It has a lot of parity, and for whatever it's worth, you know, there are also years of implementation. So the first year of implementation has one set of expectations. The second year of implementation has a different set of expectations.
Yeah, I actually want to drill down a little bit more. So as you know, with the per pupil funding right now for jurisdictions like Montgomery County that have over 40 community schools, you're able to withhold for the school board and MCPS rather up to 50% of those funds to go towards shared services, administrative costs, and things like that. So that means that up to 50% of those funds may not go directly to the community school. And I want to know, because I actually have gotten a question from a community school in my district who is really trying to understand where the funds are going that MCPS should be utilizing to help support the community schools. And I want to maybe take this offline and know how we can find out exactly how much Montgomery County is withholding for those types of services, how much is not going directly to the schools, and what exactly MCPS is doing with those funds in furtherance of our community schools. So is that you, Dr. Taylor? You're someone on your team?
Yes.
This is the final thing, Madam Chair, thank you, is that I just wanted to reiterate, and Dr. Taylor, we've talked about this before, but I'll probably bring it up in every forum until we get there, is that I think we still have a little bit more work to do on MCPS communication with the delegation. I really find it challenging to see when we find out about things that are going on with MCPS via the news, especially just big items, whether it's controversial, whether it's an error that was made that deals with state funding. It's really important to me that your team share with us directly the who, what, where, when, and why, because those are questions that we get from our constituents. And in the spirit of us working together, I'd really like to see the communication with MCPS, which has improved dramatically, but to really get there, that we are hearing from you and not the news reports when major situations occur. And it's good to know about that academic excellence program that you're not a fan of, because I am at the table around that bill. So be sure to communicate when you have that type of feedback directly with us, so that we can try to work to address your feedback. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to getting that data and information around the funds and spending for community schools. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, Delegate, welcome. Absolutely. We'll get that data to you. And also, in terms of communication, we absolutely can do better. But also, always feel free if you have a constituent reach out to you about school system issues. Say, hey, you have a board of education, send it to your board member, right? Or send it to me. And I never hide behind text messages or emails. We will get those questions answers for you. But absolutely, we will keep those in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Delegate Mercury North.
Chair, and thank you, President Yang and Superintendent Taylor, for being here today. And I will take you up on the offer offline. President Yang, I got a constituent right now. I'm gonna pass along to you. But my questions are about the our fiscal questions. So one, you mentioned the pension and the shift to the counties. You know, we being folks in the Ways and Means and Appropriations just had a hearing on the birthday yesterday, and you know, one thing I'm going to channel Chair Barnes. One thing he asked was, you know, what's the alternative? You know, what's the alternative? There's quite a bit that that we definitely understand that we're asking the counties to take on, but what's the alternative here, particularly for the pensions? And my part two of that question is community supports partnership fund that addresses youth behavioral health. That's also going to take a big cut, and want to get your thoughts on how to, you know, make up for that funding.
You asked $1 million question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told you they were fiscal. I gave you the heads up.
Right. So I can share the board's point of view, and Dr. Taylor can say how he can make the numbers work, right? Delegate, I also don't know what's the alternative. If you come down with $21 million pension shift to the county level, I'm not the funder for our schools. I have to go to the county executive and county council, ask for that funding.
Yeah.
Right? Forever. And so I'm asking myself, what's the alternative? Is the alternative that there are two things about our budget, right? There's two things. Staffing, that's 90% of our budget. Okay. Then I have 10% of programming and other costs. Then, so the biggest driver is staffing, is their pay and their insurance, their benefits, right? So what's the alternative for me if I don't get that funding from the county council? Yeah. Dr. Taylor, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think the tougher question is about clearly defining expectations and roles and what we want to do. I think part of the pain point this year is that was a surprise. And it was a surprise with the change in the special education mix. It was a surprise with the pension deferral. Like these things just take the wind out of our sails, and it's not you know, changing the taxes because somebody has to pay. And if the local revenue isn't going to match to close the gap, it's just like Julie said, we will have to cut something. And we'll either have to cut programs or we'll have to cut people to make it happen. And truthfully, 89% of our budget is salary and benefits for employees. There really are two things in our budget: how many people we have and how much we pay them. That's it. Well, our 89% because of the pension shift is now 90%, which means we just crowded out 1% of programming and operational overhead. We have one of the slimmest margins for overhead in the state as it is already. So it's just choices. I think if we're going to look at pension reform and be serious about it, it can't be a one-off, one-year discussion, and it can't be something to balance a budget in 1 year. It really needs to be a bigger conversation that the state engages with localities on. And there's a long enough lead time where it's like, this is our goal, what we're going to do with pensions, and this is how we're going to get here iteratively. versus it being surprise, this is the budget, everybody, and figure out how to deal with it on the back end, knowing that school systems have already presented their budget, boards of education have already adopted their budget, and it's this a surprise. So I believe me, I'm right there with you. It's all got to balance out. We're all a team. We're all in this together. We will figure this out. But similarly to Delegate Wilkins's point of not wanting to be surprised, we too are not fans of surprises, and it makes it difficult for us to navigate that space as well.
And we're going to go to the second to last question, Delegate Solomon, and then I have a question of my own. Go ahead, Delegate Solomon.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And it's nice to see you both. It's not really a question. I just want to reiterate that the budget that we're talking about was not our budget. I think it's really important for everybody to know that, we were surprised as well. The governor chose to do what the governor wanted to do in terms of, making decisions and cost shifts. Obviously we're at a point of collaboration with him and his team, but I think, yesterday's hearing just reiterated the governor presents a budget, then we in the General Assembly choose how to adapt it and finalize it. So, I think we would have preferred potentially a little bit more collaboration as well. But the shifts in there are still at this point the governor's budget, and we're trying to figure out how to make it work. So I just think that's a really important point that I wanted to reiterate.
Well, we appreciate that, Delegate Solomon, and I got to tell you, you have friends and supporters in the school system and in the Board of Education who share that same support and encouragement and advocacy.
Thank you. And
Thanks.
we had a decent amount of conversation about chronic absenteeism, but maybe just to end on a high point here, I'm just curious if either of you can share what has worked well, because clearly changes are working. We're trending in the right direction. Still more work to do, but what lessons learned have you had so far?
Wonderful question. So I feel like there are two things that will work, that has helped. Number one is what I said, that our school have put in some student first centered approach to actively reach out, check in with the students. I think that has made a huge difference. But I think ultimately we are an institution of learning, teaching and learning. It is how we teach, what we are teaching the students, and the hope we are able to give the students that if they learn, that something better will happen to them. That's going to make the biggest difference, right? And if we have engaging instructions, if they feel like they are seen and heard in their classrooms, I think that is what makes the difference for chronic absenteeism.
I absolutely concur, and the relationships that are being built, to the extent that we can have stability, it makes a tremendous difference. We've had nearly a 40% turnover in principal leadership over the last 2 years and are starting to see a glimmer of stability in the school system now. And that stability has paid dividends on a number of fronts. And to the extent that we can keep that stability in our governance team with our Board of Education, with our administration, and with our school leadership, it does make a significant difference.
Great. Well, thank you again for being here, for the information, for answering our questions. We definitely appreciate this, and I'm sure many members in our delegation are going to take you up on continuing the conversation on other items of interest. So again, thank you. And next, we will turn to our presentation from the universities at Shady Grove. And I see that Dr. Ann Kademian is here as well as members of her team. And so I will turn it over to them for their presentation.
Thank you so much. And good morning, everybody. Thank you all first. I want to start off by saying how grateful we are for your service and your leadership, your commitment to public service, and the ongoing support that you all have provided for USG and the educational ecosystem of Montgomery County and the state. We are very eager to continue to work with all of you over the next few years as we work to grow the importance and the impact of this unique higher education model, this campus that we have right here in Montgomery County, that's all about access, affordability, and career success. Before I go on, I just want to take a minute to express my appreciation for the partnership we have with Superintendent Taylor and President Yang, and all of the members of the MCPS. We're very grateful for how we can collaborate and work together. I also want to recognize that I'm going to introduce two colleagues here in a minute, but I want to recognize our USG Board Chair, Kevin Beverly, who's also joining us this morning. And thank you, Kevin, for all you do for USG. So I'm here today with colleagues who I'll introduce in a minute. I want to share the ongoing work at USG with you, our county and state partners, as we work together to build a strategy and a framework for talent development. And I want you to keep that in mind, a strategy and a framework for talent development here in the county. So in addition to my role here at USG as executive director, I also serve as the chair of the board of directors of Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce. And I serve as a board member of the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation. And I serve in these roles as a means to more thoughtfully and strategically connect the dots on talent development in our county. And our strategic vision here at the universities at Shady Grove has two powerful drivers behind it. One is we believe that talent development is the most important driver today of economic development, right? Our economy is going to experience impacts from decisions by the federal government. The state budget deficit, as you all know, will present long-term challenges. But there are transformative economic opportunities in AI, quantum computing, biomedical technologies, teaching, healthcare, cybersecurity, and more. And it has to be leveraged. Those opportunities have to be leveraged with smart, strategic, and thoughtfully aligned talent development. So that's one big idea behind the work that we're doing. And the second kind of big driver for the work we do is that at the heart of all talent development is the intentional connection of every student, every learner during their studies to employers for experiential learning. Every student at USG should be connected to employers during their studies. So when they graduate, they should have choices that align with opportunities and strategic growth industries. So those two big ideas really drive a lot of the work that we're doing right now and are at the heart of our strategic plan at Shady Grove. So deep partnership is required to meet our commitment to talent development and employer engagement. And we're working with our 9 USM academic partners, our education partners in the county, and our partners across business and economic development. And I am really excited and honored to introduce two exceptional business leaders with whom I've had the pleasure of building partnerships. Alana Fine, who chairs the board of directors of the Economic Development Corporation and is the CEO of VWG Wealth Management, and also Angela Franco, the CEO and president of the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce and the former CEO of the DC Chamber. So Alana could not be here this morning, so we have a recording of her comments. I'm going to ask you to listen to Alana, and we're going to hear from Angela, and then I'll wrap things up. So Jeff, if you could cue up the video from Alana.
Good morning. I'm Ilana Fine, Chair of the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors and CEO of VWG Wealth Management. It is my pleasure to join with my colleagues Angela and Ann to speak with members of the Montgomery County Delegation about our collective efforts to strategically advance talent development in our county and region. We know that talent development is the most fundamental driver to economic development today. As professionals across the region are impacted by changes in the federal government, as students seek careers with strong futures when they complete their degrees, and as people work to advance their career aspirations or to build on opportunities in other industries, the educational institutions and agencies across Montgomery County must be aligned in purpose and resources to ensure everyone has an opportunity to access the educational resources and experiential learning to succeed and to drive our economy. This is a milestone moment for the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, as we are beginning the search for a new CEO and president, and the board is taking a deep and strategic view towards the future and is committed to strengthening the vision and impact of MCEDC as the lead partner in economic development. We are excited to work with Angela Franco as CEO and president of the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce, with Workforce Source Montgomery, with our partners across the business community, and with Ann and other educational leaders to step-by-step build a strategic approach to educational opportunity and talent development. Central to this work is the funding of the Ready Institute based at USG. This innovative institute is funded by one-time county funds to provide a standard, holistic set of data for stakeholders to understand workforce demand across key sectors of the economy and the supply of talent for our educational institutions and the gaps we must thoughtfully address to accelerate talent development. READY is the foundation of that work, and we need the county government to fund the work for FY26. MCEDC is a co-sponsor of the READY Summit on April 23rd from 1 to 5 at USG. We welcome you all to attend to learn more about the data analytics for education and employment needed to address strategic talent development, to hear insights of elected officials in the county, and to see into the future with corporate leaders who will join us. Thank you and hope to see you there.
Thank you, Alana. And now it's my pleasure to introduce my good friend and colleague, Angela Franco. Angela?
Thank you, Anne, and thank you all of you. This is my first time presenting in front of you, and it is a pleasure to meet you. I am a Montgomery County resident. I've been here for 24 years. My son goes to public school, so thank you to Dr. Taylor and to President Yang. And for me, working in business and education is, I always say that it's personal. I had my first business when I was 11 years old. But I grew up in a family of educators. My father was a university professor. He was the director of a university, and my family has a school in Colombia that has 700 students, and we teach kids from pre-K until they go to college. So I live both very, very close to my heart and to my life, and now I'm very, very excited to be supporting these efforts here in the county. And in order to develop our talented workforce, we need to grow the economy in the county. So top priorities for the chamber are economic development and workforce development. The chamber is working closely with the Economic Development Corporation, with WorkSource Montgomery, and others to address the tectonic shifts that are coming for our community and economy as professionals across the region are impacted by changes in the federal government. How to support employees who have lost their job, connect them with resources and opportunities, and work together to advance a longer-term vision and plan for the economy of the county. And we are working in developing a site, in looking in ways that we can connect these people that are losing their jobs with opportunities, and working with business owners and see how we can make that attainable for everybody. This is a very, very exciting time for the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce. As I begin my 6th month, I've been there for five months. And it seems longer, but it's only 5 months. As the CEO and president of the largest and most respected chamber in the county, we are leading a strategic planning process for the chamber we're working with our board and our board chair, and we are committed to building a chamber that connects and convenes, learns and leads, and advances understanding and the insight of the business community. We are really committed to lifting the business voice and to a more coordinated and unified approach to the challenges we're facing. And working with our educational partners, we hope to build a strategic approach to educational opportunities and talent development. And it was interesting when I learned about the Ready Institute, because one of the challenges that I've seen in the different regions I've worked with is the lack of data, or they connect, but with really a strategy and research behind it. So when I learned about it, I was just I just thought it was unbelievable and amazing, and I think it can continue to give a great setting into our having an incredible workforce development strategy. The Ready Institute, based at USG, is foundational to this collaborative work. This innovative institute is funded by one-time county funds to provide a standard, holistic set of data for stakeholders to understand workforce demands across key sectors of the economy, the supply of talent from our educational institutions, and the gaps we must thoughtfully address to accelerate talent development. RED is the foundation of that work, and we need the county government to fund the work for FY26. Now I'm serving in the board of the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, and Dr. Karimian is the chair of the board of the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce, and I am making sure as the leader of the chamber that we work collaborative with the chambers across the county. And the Innovated, and also we're going to be partnering at the Innovated Summit on April 23rd from 1 to 5 at USG. The Ready Summit is important to all of our connected organizations. We welcome you all to attend, and I thank you very much for your time this morning, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And Delegate Chi, it's great to see you.
Great. Delegate T, did you have a question for Angela, or can I wrap up and then?
I was going to say, Dr. Kadimian, why don't you wrap up and then we'll go to questions.
Okay, thank you so much. Angela, thank you so much. I just have a few last comments here. I just want to say USG, as you heard, is working closely with the Economic Development Corporation and with the Chamber, with WorkSource Montgomery, with the Maryland Tech Council, with regional chambers, and of course, with all of our educational partners across the county. We want to build more consensus for a talent development strategy. And you've heard about the Ready Institute from my colleagues. This is an institute at USG established 2 years ago. It harnesses data for a strategy and a framework in talent development. We're working with the county to secure another round of one-time funds to support the work of the institute in FY26. I welcome you all to the second annual upcoming Innovate ED Summit on April 23rd. It's a Ready Institute event where Ready is positioned as a hub for shared data and collaboration in fostering this talent development. And while we await the county decision about funding, I encourage each of you to see the interconnections across educational and business organizations and find ways to incentivize, to encourage, and to drive work that is collaborative, that is targeted at key industries and businesses, and that steadily helps us all develop talented individuals who are eager to earn a degree and want to stay in the county to work. If a smart and pivotal strategy for collective effort can be developed and implemented anywhere, it is in Montgomery County. And we know with your leadership, we can make it happen. Why is this effort to drive talent development funded by the county important to you? Because it illustrates one of the fundamental values of the universities at Shady Grove as an asset to the university system of Maryland and a driver of economic development in the county and the state. So stay tuned, but we are looking forward to your partnership in this work. And I'll stop there, and we look forward to your questions.
Thank you for the information. We have Delegate Chi who has her hand raised. We'll go to her first. If other colleagues have questions, please raise your virtual hand. But Delegate Chi, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm just so excited to see these powerful women at the top doing what they do, including Chair Yang. Thank you for the presentation and your leadership. And of course, welcome Angela Franco, whom I've known for over 20 years. Let me just say that we've known each other since our DC economic development days, right? What a fun ride we've had so far. Welcome back to Montgomery County. I'm thrilled. I would think I was the first one to pre-announce your arrival before the official press release. That was really exciting. And I think having Dr. Kadimian chairing the the chamber board makes so much sense, the interconnection between workforce and economic development. So my only ask, it's more of an ask than a question, is I think a lot of our delegates and senators representing Montgomery County really are eager to see businesses thrive, especially in this kind of difficult economic climate. We are reminded again and again the importance of growing our economy, but we would welcome more ideas because most of our legislators do not come from small business background, right? So we can always benefit from your perspectives and your ideas. And if we're doing something that would not be beneficial to businesses, even in the short run or long run, whatever, we would want to hear from you more that we have in the past. I think one of the complaints I heard from my colleagues is the businesses don't engage. They don't engage enough. And of course, individual businesses is very hard for them to track all of the bills that are flying around and drive over for their 2 minutes of testimony. That's why we have chambers. That's why we have EDC, right? So your voices and leadership are critically important. And I would encourage to really engage more with the state legislators.
Delegate Chi, thank you so much for that point. We, as part of our strategic plan, planning effort, this is central to the conversations that Angela and I and others are having with how do we lift the business voice? How do we find solutions? How do we advance some of those ideas and work more collaboratively with elected officials as well? So it's top of mind.
Yes, Ms. Franco, did you want to respond to that too?
Thank you. Yes. I am totally in agreement with Dr. Kademian, and we also would love to hear from you in which ways we can communicate better and what opportunities there are in order to make a better climate. We're building obviously conversations and coalitions internally because we're seeing the economy, the actual economy in the county, and in order to keep all these programs and to keep the school going, we have to have a stronger economy here and really project where we're heading. And I think we all know exactly where we are. So I'm very committed. Dr. Kademian is very committed. Our board is very committed in really taking an active role in shifting the way and helping shape the future. But I also would get advice and would love to receive advice in which areas we can look into to advocate, or maybe that we can do things better, or maybe things we're missing or we're not seeing. But thank you. I'm very excited to be here and to be working here.
Thank you. Delegate Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it's wonderful to see you as always. Thank you for your work. And Angela, thank you for the presentation. I guess the question is more maybe to Angela. Given the storm that we're in and imminently facing with the horrible announcement about layoffs or the imminent number of potential bigger layoffs coming in the next couple of weeks, we've got about 40 days of session left. Is there anything in particular that you need from us or that you need from the state that we can be doing or bringing back to help head off or divert additional resources to help folks who are laid off and connect them to better resources in the county? Is there anything we could get from the Department of Labor, from the governor's team that would be helpful?
So let me share a little bit of what we are doing and see where that takes us. We're working on an emergency plan with Economic Development Corporation with a landing page with resources for employees and for employers, because it's not only the employees. Also, a lot of government contractors are losing contracts. So we're keeping information to the best of our ability. But right now we're in the middle of the conversations of what can we do, maybe creating a coalition of business owners and start floating resumes around for people that we can rehire, because there's great people with great qualifications that are losing their jobs. And we are thinking through, we're having 2 meetings a week to see what initiatives we can bring forward. So once anything solidifies, I'm happy to share with you. Or if you have any ideas, please let us know. We're thinking through what can we do that we can get our businesses engaged and involved in this challenging time during this time.
And
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thank you. I mean, keep us in the loop on how we can help. I mean, we're trying to push the state is trying to do an expedited hiring process, and I know those of us, especially from Montgomery and Prince George's, are really focused on making sure that we're partnering as much as we can with our local jurisdictions. So let us know as those things come to fruition if we can be helpful.
Thank you very much.
Delegate Solomon, there's the immediate urgency and emergency right now of how to support employees who are losing their job. But there's the longer term vision of how do we build a talent development strategy and system that can flex and respond in these times as well. And I think that's so important, you know, that our traditional ways of thinking about higher ed institutions, you know, kind of working independently and, you know, different agencies working independently, like we just don't have the time or the resources or the flex to hope that that all works out at some point. I think we need a much more systematic strategic approach to where are the demands, where are the needs, what's needed to help employees pivot to new opportunities. That we need a serious strategy and system in the state for how to do that. And I think that's what we're striving to do in Montgomery County. And I think it's something that we would really appreciate a bigger state conversation on, as well with all of you, or a Montgomery County delegation conversation on.
Thank you. And I think for our last question, Delegate Wallach.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation and lovely seeing both of you. I just wanted to throw in the mix that, you know, my mind and others, you know, we've been focused on jobs that former feds can do. And obviously we need to be working on that. But I imagine that some would also be thinking about starting their own businesses, small businesses or consulting even, and, you know, thinking about how to have specific resources for those that are laid off as they potentially pivot into being, you know, sole proprietor of a consulting entity, or even thinking about starting a nonprofit or for-profit. So those resources, making those accessible as well, even as we are trying to help them find jobs if that's what they're looking for. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I fully agree with you, because some people are just going to go and decide to go their own business. Those resources are available, and there are several organizations that provide technical assistance when a person wants to start a business, that provides what kind of company they can use, what kind of funding is available. And if they go into some of the innovation initiatives, you know, where can they do? I mean, I think that also sparking the question, I think Delegate Chi, you can relate to this, but you know, how do we diversify our business sector so that we are not so heavily into government contracting, but what other things can we do as a county that diversifies the business community and, you know, help us all move forward in the right direction?
Great. I think that is it for questions. Want to thank you both for being here, and for your rest of your team as well, for the information. And, you know, as always, we can follow up if there's additional questions. But again, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you all so much. Great to see you all. Take care.
Okay, colleagues, we will move on to the remainder of our agenda. Heads up, so I don't forget to say this later on, since I always seem to think of this right as we're about to vote. A heads up that today delegates Shetty and Moon are excused in terms of voting. So we do have two bills that were special ordered at our last meeting that are coming back around. We're going to start with MC 7-25, Board of Education compensation. And just procedurally, colleagues, if you recall, we special ordered this bill after the committee adopted amendment had been made and seconded. And procedurally, and I've been talking with our committee analyst, Jen Young, about this, you know, I think our best way forward is going to be, I'm going to recommend that we vote down that amendment. It's because we do have a compromise amendment that Delegate Charkoudian and I will be explaining that we worked on. I did give everybody a heads up that this amendment is coming, but I think this amendment does address the concerns that were raised at last week's meeting. But we do have at the moment on the table the amendment that was adopted by the committee. So again, I'm just asking that procedurally we vote down the committee amendment. And if you don't recall, we were on the committee adopted amendment that had to do with the student member of the board compensation. And that amendment had been made, a favorable motion had been made and seconded.
Move unfavorable, Madam Chair.
Well, no, sorry, Delegate Kaufman, we already have a motion and a second for favorable, and I'm asking for everyone to vote against that favorable motion.
Sorry, I was just confused.
No worries. I was just about to ask, is there questions about where we are procedurally? Because once we've dispensed with that amendment, then Delegate Charkoudian, if you'd like, can present our joint amendment that was emailed. It's in your public email inboxes. It is also in the Drive folder for today's meeting for the delegation for anyone who wants to pull that up. There is a reprint as well if folks want to pull that up. Okay, so I'm not seeing questions about where we are procedurally. As a reminder, if you want to be recorded as voting, you do need to come on camera. Okay, so all those in favor of the favorable motion, please raise your hand or say aye. Hang on. Remember, I'm recommending we vote this one down so that we can take up the other amendment. So let's try that again. Again, people can vote however they want, but all those in favor of the favorable motion, please raise your hand or say aye. Okay. All those opposed to the favorable motion, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
It's okay. I know this is confusing.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah,
by far we
I
have.
apologize.
probably messed it up. Sorry.
All right.
You actually get to say nay for a change, Madam Chair.
Oh, you're right. We get to say nay. That is true. Okay, we're just rusty on this stuff. Do we need a roll call? Does anyone actually want to be marked as voting in favor of that motion? No. Okay, all three people who did raise their hands previously are now shaking their heads. Okay, so that's going to be unanimously against the favorable motion. So that amendment, excuse me. So that amendment has been voted down. All right, so next I'm going to turn to Delegate Charkoudian to offer the amendment that she and I have worked on.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, colleagues. I just want to give a little bit of context before we take on this amendment. I think you all know that I still feel very strongly about the need to increase the salaries of all of the members of the Board of Education. In extensive conversation with colleagues, I think it's clear that we don't have a path forward for that exactly this year, although it's been really helpful to talk to folks. And I actually, before I offer this amendment, I do want to say I intend to keep working on this issue, and I really encourage folks to work with me over the interim to find a path forward that people can live with, that ensures that Board of Education members are earning a salary commensurate to the kind of work that they do. And so I do really want to welcome that, and I'll be reaching out to folks after session as we start preparing for next year. With that in mind, in trying to find the areas that we thought we could have consensus or agreement, or at least a majority vote, one of the issues that we did spend time talking about is the student member of the board. And I think there was recognition in the conversations, both in the subcommittee, which moved the bill forward, and in the delegation conversations, that it was appropriate to have the possibility of financial compensation in a form of a stipend, not just a scholarship for the student member. And the thought process was a scholarship assumes, one, that the student member can be on the board and work without having to have another job, which is not necessarily the case for many of the students in our community, and two, an assumption that the student member of the board is going to go to higher education. And so I think with the idea of supporting students coming from all kinds of economic backgrounds and with all kinds of different sort of next step futures, the chair and I spent some time drafting an amendment, and that's the amendment that you have right now. So the amendment right now is doesn't touch, it sort of removes the part of the bill that would touch the salaries of the Board of Education members, and it changes the bill so it only focuses on the student member of the board. Right now, sort of before we touch anything, current law is that the student member of the board receives a scholarship at the end of their term in the amount of the cost of a full year of tuition, room, board, and mandatory fees at the University of Maryland systems, or the most expensive University of Maryland systems. That's current law. So our proposed amendment changes the law. So it says that the student receives either that or that in terms of compensation as a stipend. And so a student could say, if that amount, let's say, is 23,000, a student could say, I need that in the form of a stipend to pay costs to my family, if my household expenses. And so they would receive that stipend in a monthly, payments throughout their term as a board member. If they wanted to continue to receive it as a scholarship, they could receive it as a scholarship, or they could do a combination. But one of the things that we did put in place is at no point could they receive more in terms of stipend than the elected members of the board. So what that means is, let's say at some point, the cost of going to college in Maryland becomes $27,000. They couldn't take $27,000 as a stipend because the rest of the members of the board are getting $25,000. So they could get up to $25,000 as a stipend, and then the remaining $2,000 they would get in the form of a scholarship. So that is what the amendment does. It's not as complicated as I think it sounds when you try to explain it, but I get that people might be confused. So I wonder, Madam Chair, if we take clarification questions before we take comments on it and move it, or before we move it, or do you want to?
Well, I just was going to actually give just a real short recap on this, and then I think we will take the motion in the second, but we'll definitely go to questions next. So just to recap, the amendment that's before the delegation, and I'll say it is Delegate Charkoudian and I's intention that this amendment becomes the bill, that there aren't, I know we had some other amendments potentially pending at our last meeting, that this would be it. It doesn't change the compensation for the regular elected members. It does not change the compensation amount for the student member of the board, but it changes out how and when the student member would get said compensation, whether that's stipend and or scholarship. Okay, so let's take a motion on the amendment, please.
Move the amendment.
Second.
Okay, moved by Delegate Charkoudian, seconded by Delegate Kaiser, and now we'll open up for questions. Delegate Kaiser.
Truly briefly, thank you both for the work you did, and I do believe that Board of Ed members should get more money, so I'd love Delegate Charkoudian to be a part of figuring that out during the interim. Thank you both.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, I'm going to take silence as we are good. And like I said at the top, Delegate Charkoudian and I were hoping that this was going to be a good compromise, but yes, going to Delegate Spiegel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's not a question, just a comment. I wanted to say, while I'm still not 100% comfortable with the idea of a student member being able to elect to take up to $25,000 as a salary, and would probably prefer, in an ideal world, something less than that. I think this is a really good compromise and effort to find consensus, given the other concerns that I had and others had about the original bill. So I'm going to vote yes, even though I'm not 100% comfortable with that dollar amount as a salary for a 17-year-old. But I just want to say thank you to the sponsors for working on this and listening to the delegation.
Thank you. Other discussion? Okay, this is the cue then, I think, for people who are not on camera and who want to be recorded as voting to please come on camera. We have a favorable motion on the amendment, and that has been seconded. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the amendment is adopted unanimously. Is there a motion on the bill as amended?
Move favorable.
Second.
Moved favorable by Delegate Charkoudian, seconded by Delegate Kaiser. Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the bill as amended, please say aye or raise your hand. Anyone opposed?
I'm a little late. Can I say something on the bill, or is it too late?
I think it's too late, Delegate Kaufman. Okay. Sorry, Delegate Fraser Hidalgo is opposed. Is that right? Okay. Did I miss anyone else who is opposed? No. So that bill passes. All right. Thank you all. As I said in my email yesterday, I really am appreciative of all of the conversation. I think it was very informative and helped us to get to this point. So again, thank you for everyone who has been thinking about this issue and just appreciate the process to get here. So moving to our last agenda item for the day, MC 21-25, alcoholic beverage licenses, health and safety regulations. This bill was also special ordered last week. And colleagues, as a reminder, in terms of where we are procedurally on this one, we had adopted amendments to this bill. We special ordered it on the bill as amended, as well as the motion to reconsider. And Jen, correct me if I presented that incorrectly, but I think it was kind of a two-parter for the motion when we special ordered it last week.
My recollection is that Delegate Corman moved to reconsider the vote by which the bill passed, and then also moved to special order the bill.
Okay, so thank you. So yes, so technically we are on the motion to reconsider the bill. And before I recognize my colleagues, because I think we're at the point of debating that motion to reconsider. Well, actually, no, I'll go to my colleagues first. Okay, go ahead, Delegate Kaufman.
And it is just a very brief question. One of the reasons that we special ordered it is because Jen had sort of gotten an on-the-fly advice, but we weren't 100% sure under the rules of the House of Delegates that we were allowed to revote. Some people thought maybe the train had already left the station, so it was too late. Did we get parliamentary clarification on that, whether we're allowed to do this?
Do you want me to speak on that?
Yes, please.
Okay, yes, I was able to talk to meaning the Department of Legislative Services, the person who trains all of us on parliamentary procedure, and she felt it was appropriate to go if we wanted to, which we did. Go ahead. I did want to say that was adopted in the first place in order for it to be special ordered. So I would say that we're actually on the bill itself now, because the vote to reconsider passed, so we're reconsidering that vote. So we're back on the bill as amended, I should say.
Okay, my apologies for setting up the confusion, and thank you, Delegate Kaufman, for the good procedural question. Delegate Kaiser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is similar but different. We voted for this bill a few weeks back and I thought sent it to the committee. So what has changed since then in terms of the provisions and what we previously did?
Yes, thank you for that question. So the issue and was raised at last week's meeting is that we were under a time crunch at the point where this bill was reported out. It was the last day that we could take a position on the bill for it to be heard in the standing committee. And we didn't have, if we didn't send a letter to the standing committee, the bill was going to be dead. And the feeling is given that we have done this for, I think, 3 or 4 other bills in this delegation this session, where we didn't want to hold it up in terms of having a hearing and having that shot in a standing committee. We moved to advance the bill to the standing committee with the understanding, at least for some of us, that there was going to be another bite at the apple in terms of final feelings on the legislation. So I think that kind of summarizes where at least some of us were at last week. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are we now debating the merits of the bill?
I believe so. I think that's what Jen just clarified for us.
Okay. So I would like to say that I will be voting in favor of this bill. The committee did a lot of work on this bill. We talked to and communicated with all the stakeholders with respect to the bill. We had a lot of back and forth. I, as chair of the committee, heard from at least one county official, the president of the county council, directly, that she was very much in favor of this bill. And we tried to address, there was a favorable letter with conditions initially from the county government. We tried to address those concerns. I think we did. The county representatives signed off on the bill. And I believe that because of all of that, I'm going to stick with the committee and I'm going to vote to support the bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there other discussion on the bill as amended? Okay, I'm just going to briefly say, and I said this last week, I very much respect the bill sponsors' work on this and the committee's work on this. I continue to have some concerns about unintended consequences potentially. And over this last week, as I've just been looking into more about how the current alcohol licensing system works, just continue to have some reservations on the bill. So further debate. Otherwise, I think we still have, I'm sorry, Jen, do we need to have another motion? We already have a motion and a second for favorable. Is that right?
We had, the only thing that's been moved was the two things we discussed, which was the reconsideration and the special order. I don't believe the bill's been moved favorably yet.
Okay, well, why don't we take a motion and a second?
Madam Chair, I move favorable on the bill.
Second.
Okay, so moved favorable as amended, the previous amendment that we adopted, however many meetings ago that was, by Delegate Foley, seconded by Delegate Kaiser. Recognizing Delegate Charkoudian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that I want to start by thanking the committee. We actually spent an extraordinary amount of time in subcommittee, so I want to thank the subcommittee members for all of the time and effort that they put into this. I think I believed in the bill when I brought it. I believe in it even more now that we've done that work, which is what the committee work is supposed to do, is to make it that much better. I think that sometimes we get resistance from bodies who don't like it when we change the rules they're operating under. I think it is absolutely our job to determine what our state and county values are and to tell the bodies that are responsible for implementing the law exactly how we hope they will implement that. And that's, so while I understand that the board itself is still in opposition, I think the fact that the council and the executive are supportive and the committee has moved it to this point is significant. And I would just, two other things for folks who may not be following along, although at this point I think we've spent so much time on this, maybe everyone feels like they know it. The language we have now is consistent in its detailed and vagueness. It's the same consistency as everything else that we tell the board to consider. The board already considers density in terms of its impact on other businesses, but it doesn't consider density in terms of its impact on public safety and public health. And so the only change we're making is to add public safety and public health to the considerations that they take when they look at the density issue. So I urge our colleagues to vote in favor of this.
Thank you, Delegate Charkoudian. Any further discussion? Okay, so we have a favorable motion on the bill as amended. Again, and if you're not on camera and wish to be recorded as voting, please come on camera.
Madam Chair, can we do a roll call on this, please? Because it would just be easier to see who's voting for what.
Sure, there's been a request for a roll call, so that would be fine. Jen, can I turn that over to you, please?
All right, I just to give everyone a heads up, I'm going to call people who currently appear off camera just to make sure that we're giving them the chance to vote. So I'll take a moment between everybody's names. Delegate Charkoudian.
Yes.
Delegate Cullison.
Yes.
Yes. Delegate Crutchfield. And she's absent, excuse me. Delegate Foley.
Yes.
Delegate Frazier Hidalgo.
Aye.
Delegate Kaiser.
Aye.
Delegate Kaufman.
Yes.
Delegate Corman.
Aye.
Delegate Lopez.
Yes.
Delegate Maricu North.
Yes.
Delegate Chi.
Yes.
Delegate Queen. Delegate Shetty is absent. Delegate Spiegel.
No.
Delegate Solomon.
Yes.
Delegate Stewart.
Yes.
Delegate Vogel. Delegate Wilkins,
Yes.
Delegate Wims,
Yes.
Delegate Wolick,
Yes.
Delegate Werman,
Yes.
Delegate Wu, Delegate Ziegler,
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Chair votes no. And just to clarify, I now forgot which name it was, but just as a reminder, delegates Shetty and Moon are excused today.
That is 17 in favor and 2 opposed.
Okay, so MC 21-25 is reported out favorably. We will update the standing committee with that information. All right, that ends our agenda for today. Are there any committee announcements? I'm thinking no, because I know we are still waiting on some bills that are bi-county bills that are in the Prince George's County delegation, but just making sure. Nope, no committee chairs looking to be recognized. So no meetings scheduled at this point for next week. One other item for everyone's awareness, we do have a date worked out with the Senate delegation for our delegation photo. So please hold Friday morning, March 21st to look your best for our delegation photo. And I think we'll be able to accommodate district photos as well as we have in past years, but stay tuned over email for exact time and location for the delegation photo. Any other announcements before we adjourn? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.